One of the giants of the Eastern Conference and Rogue Warriors have been taken down here today. Sinning were able to pick up a victory, which is crucial for their playoff contest. Get out of here, Cord. You already put back there while I was trying to do my look lives. But now we get to watch the other e-commerce team, which is going to be Jindong playing against TOP. This has now become a must-win for Jindong because, yes, they hold the head-to-head against Suning, but now they have to take down Suning again in order to beat them in that playoff standing unless Suning drop another game.
Yeah, currently we're looking at Jingdong. They're 2 games behind Suning Gaming, and there's only 3 games left, actually. So it's a very tight race here, and this is an absolute must-win. They do hold the head-to-head versus Suning Gaming from the first intra-conference bout, but this still is going to be a very high-risk game for them.
And although Suning were able to look good in that match against Rogue Warriors, we have to also take into account the recent form from Jindong, especially in their match against RNG, where they looked incredibly good, and that's going to be difficult for TOP to overcome.
Yeah, so Jingdong, the story is very similar to Suning in a sense. They're these new and upstart teams that are upsetting a lot of the older established ones, but however, they don't really have the stability to continue their runs through extended amounts of time. This is their chance to really solidify themselves and kind of show that to the world. On 8.5, they play pretty similar to Suning. Once again, it is a lot about their mid-game priority with that Galio pick, with the Zag pick, and that's the composition that's really been showing them forward and allowing them those strong early games.
We get to take a look at seeing exactly how they did just that, because for TOP, it's going to be very difficult for them to replicate what a team like Suning were able to do today against Rogue Warriors, because unlike that match, it's actually Jindong that are favorites coming into this game. So yes, the onus is really going to be on TOP, who have had not a great split so far and have been eliminated from playoff contention.
Yeah, the big thing about TOP Gaming really is all of it relies on Marin's shoulders right now. The only wins they have gotten have been on Marin just going crazy on the split push, basically. So he's put in this dilemma where he has to play very risky in lane in order to make things work. But however, teams are very diligent at punishing him when he also does that. So a lot of it is going to come down to how are they going to contain Marin, how are they going to, which matchups are they going to give Zoom against Marin, and just try to make sure that he doesn't go off the rails.
Because like Suning Gaming, as you mentioned, the other e-commerce team in general, they do play the 1-3-1. They do play the 1-4 as well. And if you're TOP and you're relying on Marin to split push, a team that has better execution, a team that plays this playstyle frequently, could probably beat him to the punch. And is it really going to come down to his individual playstyle? Is there anywhere else in the map that we can really look towards for TOP?
Well, you know, that's been the big question. So TOP has been a bottom team before Marin even joined the roster. On average, they're about 500 gold behind just in their bot lane before 10 minutes. So statistically speaking, weakest bot lane in the group right now, and we're also having a lot of questions because XX has been suspended. We only have Korn, who hasn't played a lot of games, mainly support, and Swain, and also Karin. So when you're looking down the roster, the only shimmer of hope you're really looking for is that top and jungle duo, the double Korean duo in Marin and Karin, to really carry them.
Look, can't discredit Korn though. He had a fantastic show match. He looked unstoppable. I still think that the competitor really should be thrown his way because he was playing a match while he was still listed under the TOP roster.
It doesn't count. Doesn't count.
Does not count. But TOP have not had a good season so far, and it'd be an upset to Jindong. They can pick up victory here. Jindong, they just need to keep calm and play their regular strategy and try not to showcase too much because, as we mentioned, now their match against Suning matters so much more.
Yeah, there's a couple ways they could play it, but first let's go into Jingdong's roster right here, still starting RD and Klid. So the roster is basically stabilized from the past couple of weeks.
Rounding out with Zoom, Yakao, as well as Limao. They're up against TOP. As you mentioned, XX has been suspended recently, and it's going to be a tough match for them to go up against Jindong. They have Marin, Karin, Korn, Chol, as well as Phage.
One of the win conditions TOP could try to go for is that bot lane. We've seen Chocho get his favorite Jin back into the meta on 8.5. We've seen him use the pick before. And honestly, they're going up against Jingdong's bot lane, who has had some very shaky performances. D-Syncs in the lane, also that terrible game against IG, which showcased a lot of their 2v2 flaws. They're not exactly the best bot lane ever. So, you know, TOP could kind of throw a curveball right here, try to pick Marin on something like Rumble, which they have done a couple times, and try to win early that way. But still, it's still very heavily favored in Jingdong.
It certainly is, especially when we look at pound for pound the talent that Jindong have coming into this matchup. You look at TOP, again, you're only going to be looking towards top lane, which is going to be Marin. And is that the strategy? We already mentioned JDG are going to be a split pushing team. Marin likes the split push. Is that TOP's strategy? Just try and beat Jindong at the split push?
you don't need to split push yourself. You just need to contain him early game. Make sure Martin never does anything. Martin has played about 20 games so far, and the games he's gone off, there's only about 3 of them. So most teams are very good at just keeping him locked down. He doesn't have a very good KDA, doesn't have a very good time in lane, and that's exactly what I expect Jingdong to continue to do.
And that's been all the talk when it comes to TOP recently. Since Marion has joined the team, that's the only person that anyone has ever talked about. Speaking of which, Zoom has something to say about Marion before we get into game number 1.
接下来我们就要打拓扑战队，他们的上单马瑞选手，我觉得他是一名会指挥的上单选手，同时英雄池也非常全面，但是对线不是特别的凶，所以我将利用这点争取在对线上取得优势。
Thank you so much, Fish and Clement. My name is Dom. Joining me here on the desk, Brinto Raz Mohammed. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you for asking.
That's pretty fantastic. Are you excited for this match?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so then what on earth would you like to talk about? Because as we already heard on the desk, there's a lot going on here. We've got the bottom lane, mid lane. You just saw Marin's beautiful face.
Well, Zoom just said something that I disagree with.
And that is?
Marin plays passive. Wait a minute. The man's getting ganked constantly. What else is he supposed to do?
Kill them, Raz. Kill them all.
I mean, that's going to be the major discussion in this set because TOP needs to play towards the top side of the map if they are going to be a TOP team. If they're going to play towards Marin, do it properly.
Okay.
Bring it into a 2v2 scenario, and I think the best thing about Korn is that he turns it into a 3v3 if he gets the Galio specifically. Now, Galio's a shared champion for both of them, so I would be surprised if it even comes out of bans, but Korn has been known to go towards roaming picks if necessary. Maybe the Talon, maybe the Echo. We've seen some Echo. So I want to see Korn diversify, or at least go back to his old pool.
Yeah.
Not so much the Orianna, just because I want to see him mobilize and get towards the top side of the map.
I'm just saying, Spellbinder Fizz is a hell of a champion. Korn
No.
the old Fizz.
Nope.
And that's called a shutdown, ladies and gentlemen. We're not gonna be. Look, Korn, he could pull it out.
Look,
I'm
he
just saying,
can,
there's
he
a
can,
chance.
and I do think there's
you
an
bring
opening.
Up Talon
look,
as well.
look, there is an opening for Fizz. I do
Okay,
agree with
okay.
you. So I'm just putting that out there.
Look, we'll take it as it goes. Full on Marin, the best top lane a few years ago. Not so much anymore. But can he carry TOP? Can he bring his team back together? As we are into pick and ban for this game one. Already 2 mid laners, Galio and Azir taken away from Yagao. So already TOP respecting that mid lane matchup.
Yep, that's needed. Biggest focus now from this point forward looks to be the Rise. I wonder if TOP allow Rise to get picked up by Jingdong. That's going to be the priority for JD immediately. Just because we didn't expect the Galio to be coming through regardless, so you'd have to plan for the next few picks.
Oh, Swain priority. That means Rise now could fall over towards Korn. It's a champion that he's very familiar with on the opposite side. But what do top prioritize here? They see the Tahm Kench's banned away.
I would
Looks
say
like bottom lane priority.
I would say jungle. Perhaps pick up the Olaf that Karn has loved so much for himself, being able to pick up the priority in that instance. Because at this point, knowing that Swain's been picked up, you can go into the second phase with your mid lane, maybe even go towards the Taliyah early on, Taliyah or Orianna, just so you can have proper trades throughout that matchup. We've seen far more Swain mid lane picks recently than we have top lane, so you have to start preparing for it.
Yeah, now take a look at the answer from TOP. A very early Karma that can be flexed between Korn and Phage. Korn, not exactly very well known for his Karma play, but certainly not a very difficult champion to play in the mid lane. Perhaps could be looking to set up a sort of a hyper carry AD composition, which TOP was known for in 2017 summer, but that's going to be a little difficult now that Kog'Maw's taken away.
And TOP has had some great poke comps in the bottom side of the map, with Chocho being able to pick up his Jhin recently. So that is an option that you have. And if you've seen RNG's most recent game, being able to pick up Karma in the support role showcases that laning phase focus could be a thing for the team. That being said, we do have to comment on the fact that Gnar gets picked up once again. Marin loves the pick. It's a great blind pick ultimately. You can play towards it, or you can just decide that it's safe into any matchup, or just so he can farm out well. And then you look to focus on the bottom side of the map. That seems to be the focus here for TOP.
Caitlyn is the hover from Chocho, a massive champion for him. He's really made a name for himself on it, along with the likes of Fury, who was able to pick up a pentakill just last split. But Choo-Choo is now going to be the one taking this champion here. So already we've got the Karma, already we've got the Caitlyn. There's that Rise ban away, so the two teams, very clear priorities so far, matching each other with that late game composition.
Just love the fact that TOP is prioritizing the support position quite highly. They still have the fact that they can flex the Karma towards support or have Karma going towards the mid lane, just so they now know that it's going to be the tank support in the Alistar pick, gives them the opportunity to go straight priority there. Suddenly TOP are going to be playing from the bot side of the map. Getting a good mid laner so you can have priority, or at least just the pushing lane, is really proper. So it's up to JD to just ban out the Taliyah.
We'll see if that's what they go for, as Jarvan banned away from Clid in the jungle and Bard banned away from Phage in the bottom lane. So already Jingdong sort of predicting that Karma to go towards the mid lane, potentially limiting Korn down a little bit. With 10 seconds left on the clock, we'll see what this final ban is going to be, as we don't have either jungler from either side and only a single jungle ban. So there are a lot of big picks. Even the Thresh now being banned away from Phage.
Yeah.
Jingdong are really banking on this Karma going mid.
Yeah, way too many flex picks on both teams, to be fair. So they're just aiming straight towards the support, saying Phage won't have these pick supports. So suddenly JD feel a lot more safe to play around whatever jungle pick that Clid's want for himself. So if Clid goes towards a Kha'Zix early on, if that's available for him, he can go through the bottom lane and not expect that to be turned so frequently with a Thresh or Bard pick.
Well, it looks like that might be what we see next, is Sejuani is the priority for Karin. We saw the Olaf hover, but like you said, Kha'Zix immediately hovered and locked in for Clid. Raz, it's almost like you know what these guys want to do.
It's just that right now, Kha'Zix is such a fragile champion, especially going up against these tank or bruiser junglers, so you need to create a proper game state for him. So right now, JD have such great scaling on the side of Kog'Maw that they just need that oomph in the early game. And you need to protect that early game pick. So having the Kha'Zix having access to the bottom side of the map is priority for them.
And look at that. Yagao with a bit of a smile says, hey, I just saw this champion a few minutes ago. Maybe I can put on a clinic of my own and try to get that man of the match, as Zoe is the lock-in for Yagao.
Oh.
Morgana locked in for the first time in the 2018 LPL here for, well, let's see. Is that going to go to Korn? Is that going to go to Phage?
It has to go to Phage at this point. It'd make a lot more sense. It's a great point of protection for the team. They have two shields. Of course, the general shield also boosting of the speed of Chocho. Both supports technically can proc Ardent Sensor, so that would be nice to see. TOP are going to be playing towards a much more scaling composition. I would love to see Marin go for a tank. We have not seen, as you mentioned, Morgana in this split, but we've seen it in the West. Morgana is great into, of course, the tank lineups like Alistar. It really denies their engage in the bottom side of the map, so it allows the side of TOP to just play towards bottom lane a lot more safely.
That said, TOP putting all of their eggs into the bottom lane basket. And as we know with Caitlyn, she either wins early or she wins late. That mid-game where the Kog'Maw starts picking up items, where the Kha'Zix and the Zoe start looking to hunt and pick off targets, could be an opportunity for Jingdong to try to open it up. But TOP, do they have the communication? Do they have the presence of mind as a team to keep their calm under that constant threat of pressure from Jingdong?
My question does come to the fact that whenever we're critiquing teams in communication, especially the teams in the lower half of their own group, it gets tenfold when their team is not really sporting the same roster. So now Karin is back, Korn is in the same roster now. How's the communication forming for the team? Sure, Korn is a veteran of the league, but it's still a vastly different type of communication, synergy that you have when you are now faced with a composition that he has to play towards the bottom side of the map.
That's going to be a very important point of focus for these two teams as we get ready to load onto the Rift here for Game 1. Jingdong going to try to keep pace with Suning, who are now one step closer to locking in their playoff stop. Can they do it by taking this game against TOP? Still, the crowd cheers on. They might have been eliminated from playoffs, but they haven't been eliminated from our hearts.
And the passion is still there from the TOP fans. They're not going to drop out. Those are real fans out there.
Absolutely.
Just because the team itself ain't doing well. Gotta love it.
This is when you look towards the hardcore fans, the ones that stick through the thick and thin of the team. making sure they're always with them. Of course, previously Dan Gaming last year, they were finally able to end their longest losing streak in LPL history, bringing Marin into the team to inject some new life. Korn in the mid lane as well to give them some spice. Is it enough, though, as this team starts looking ahead towards 2018 summer?
Immediately, I just want to look in towards the Keystones, just because TLP having triple Airy makes a lot of sense for Marin. That's been the go-to for Gnar, just for the laning phase focus. Both of them have Airy, so I like the fact that Swain should have the pressure in this matchup, especially once he gets Catalyst for himself, so he can just spam out his Qs, especially when he's going up against the mini-Gnar of Marin. It's going to be a lot harder for Marin as the laning phase goes on. But back towards the two other Aries in the form of Korn and Phage, both of them are just going to be looking for shields. So that's a big point of play where this team is now going to be playing around team fights. And that's why it's so important, is because Chocho as an AD carry, if you look towards what his identity is as a player, what makes him valuable in the league, has been his team fighting. Has been known as a team fighting AD carry. His damage to gold ratio is fairly high for where the team is currently standing. So I would like to see how he plays this game out.
We're certainly going to find out. Phage with the full laning runes, taking Airy, Mana Flow, Celerity, and Scorch for harasses. That binding actually will connect. A quick headbutt.
They're going
and
in.
Ignite plus the trap. Headshot onto RD as he just heals and backs away. But look at that trade. So effective. Plus Cosmic Insight for Phage means he's going to get that cooldown just a bit faster. Clit, though, sneaks in. He's found Chocho. Immediate leap. That's heal, but red buff. A binding still catches him. Mao doesn't follow.
There we go. I mean, that should have been great for the TOP bottom lane. But of course, the moment they get that beautiful pick onto RD, they decide they're confident enough to start moving forward in the lane and get the ward down. And that was just really great timing on the side of Clid to just look to get the gank off. That's probably the best gank you can get for yourself. That's 100% success rate, just because Chocho and Phage are definitely going to move on the offensive if RD has 20% HP.
Well, it might be even higher now as Clid on the invade, spotted out by a ward, is going to take this Gromp. He's only level 3, and you can see Korn is on the way to try to get some damage over the wall. Oh, he's actually looping around. Phage is up there along with Mao. Clid suddenly realizes that something's up. Scryer's Bloom binding. Leapt and dodged by the jungler of Jingdong. They focused their bottom lane very early by giving a topside start for Clid, allowing RD and Mao to try to control the wave early on, but already TOP seemed to be responding appropriately to that pressure.
Yeah. Just honestly, all about playing towards your jungler at this stage of the game. The fact that TOP recognized that perhaps they could make a pick on towards the invading Kazakhs, and if they were able to get that Q off, that would have given Sejuani enough time to look to join and enter the fight. She was moving towards her wolf camp. So these are opportunities that could be created for TOP. It's nice to see that the communication is coming through this time.
Yeah, this is something that they've definitely been needing to work on. Like you said, communication for these lower tier teams has always been a bit of a question, and it is amplified when your play isn't very clean to begin with, as that's actually a good never move on to Marin. Zoom brings in the White Ravens and starts pulling Marin's health down. Oof, that is a scary lane to deal with.
That's what's always rough when it comes to Gnar in some of these matchups, because even though he's a ranged top laner, he's a mid-range top laner.
Yeah.
So when he goes up against mages, like, funny enough, historically, Morgana's top has been one thing to go up against that can deal quite well with them. Same with Swain, in the sense that if you look towards trading against Swain, you have to expose yourself past the wave if you go far enough to, let's say, you commit well enough into it. So sending out the never move is fairly easy. And for Swain, you send out the never move, the full combo comes through.
Yagao in the mid lane, lands the sleep and flashes away very early. Ooh, misses the paddle star back, even using the same skin as Knight from the previous game. A quick aside, Yagao, he's actually the highest damage per minute Zoe in the league right now. His record is 1,340 damage per minute. And you know who that was against?
Who was it against?
It was Knight.
Oh.
The guy who just played the champion a few minutes ago. So perhaps this could be a bit of a confidence play from Jingdong, saying, looking across from Suning, who just took a win off of the second best team in the league, and saying, you're not out of our reach just yet. You haven't eliminated us from playoffs just yet.
This patch has been really strong for Yagao.
Yeah.
The Zoe, particularly the one that you've mentioned, the fact that he can now have that impact now that the ratio has been considerably buffed on her Q. That being said, getting ganked.
Ooh, caught out by Karin, who follows the quick portal jump. A stun, but sleep onto Karin.
Oh!
The turret shot is enough. First blood. Happy birthday, Yagao. I hope you like your gift. As Yagao now trying to back away from Korn. Clid trying to follow up. He still got flash out of this, and Clid decides not to follow.
That's really unfortunate on the side of TOP. Obvious to say, but there's no damage on the side of Korn and Karin at this point in the game. So they thought that they could at least get it through just a war, but Christian, stay there long enough. Maybe you can burn him down, but he's already that close to his tower. The tower shot did come through. Marin roaming.
A quick flash away. Marin tosses the boomerang and gets the kill. Korn flashes, but a leap from Clid answers. It's 1-1, bringing it 2-1 in kills, but Marin decides not to chase down the Kazakhs.
All right, Marin's been doing this frequently. Even though we had known TOP to be a team that plays towards top lane, as the lane goes on, he's been roaming quite frequently, and a lot of the fights that they do have is rotate around mid lane, funny enough. When it's happened around Korn, when it's happened around Goong.
Now, trading with Phage, eats a Dark Binding, and the Ignite, plus a Trap. That's a lot of damage. Flashes away, tries to make his way to the Blast Cone. Auto attack's not enough. Phage! Ooh, that's a hitbox.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, there's not many ways he could play that one. But we are already to another point of action.
Yes,
Korn, get
Zoom
out of here.
Diving up top. Remember, he has no flash. He just used it. The slow burn, and Zoom is gifted the kill by Clid. Karin follows up. Another turret hits him, stun, and Karin gets revenge. This is a bloodthirsty match as Clid tries to trade with Karin. He knows he's dead, and he still gets the kill.
This game is ridiculous.
It is.
And I don't know what else I would have expected, because Clid, when he's on the team, he constantly looks for fights. He constantly goes for the attack. And so he found an opportunity to go top lane because Korn was catching the wave. Sure, you get the kill, but it's always Karin answering back. So Karin coming back strong. Well done on them.
And this is where we actually get to see the replay here as Clid engages and starts it off nice and easy for Korn.
This is what's rough, because Clid has to come back in just because he expends the jump initially. So it's Zoom that has to tank the tower. Because of that, he is, of course, going to fall to Karin, and Marin comes through. So the best thing about this is at least Clid answers back, but had the dive played well.
More action in the bottom lane. I believe that's Chocho dead.
Okay, I refuse to talk about that. I'm finishing out my point on the top lane because there's too many fights happening.
Tell me about it.
Had the dive been played well top lane, that would have been much better for Jingdong. They actually would have escaped that very cleanly, maybe even turned that into towards Karin. But because the jump was expended really early on, then yeah, lights out, you get traded upon. So Jingdong, I would say, making better movements, but the execution isn't coming through.
Here's that play bottom. Oh, Fade shields himself, and then Mao just walks it down with a few auto attacks.
Who are you to trust if it's not your own support?
Oh, you know, I actually had a game last night with Froskirin where she said, I have shield, I can heal you, and then I died, and she shielded herself. It happens to pros too. I have a much better respect for how that play worked out now.
A single tear is coming down.
A single tear. It was an emotional moment.
There we go.
As we're learning and growing on the analyst desk, the more you know. 10 minutes into the game, and we get to discuss a little bit more of the identities of these two teams. TOP really struggling to find their identity due to the massive losing streak that this team has only recently begun to find it through the likes of Marin, finally giving them a winning lane to play through.
Yeah, and they're still learning. Even when having Marin on the team, there have been stretches of which they play towards top lane. That did happen when XX was on the team more often than not. And then recently, when they brought out Renekton, they actually decided to play through mid lane or had their stints through bottom lane and brought Marin towards bot side, so he would TP far more frequently. So they're still in the sense of learning, and they can do that just because they're already out of playoff contention, so they have the ability to learn for next split. I like the fact that they're doing that with their stage time. This time around, playing through bottom lane, I like to see it happen, and I want to see if the communication is strong enough so that Marin is effective, impactful. We've already seen him roam towards mid lane. He has 2 kills for himself just because of the action at the top side of the map. B is able to bleed that towards the bottom side of the map. I see great things for TOP.
Did that Eldritch Blast just miss?
Hell
Marin trying to go for the 1v1, forces Zoom to flash. These are the mechanics of a world champion.
And now that he knows that flash is down, you have to believe that he's calling over Karin, just because that is a diveable range.
Already on the way, Raz. Or maybe not, he's trying to loop around.
Yeah, he does have to be aware of this, just because now Yagao, visibly not mid lane, Corn doesn't have TP. This is a 3v1 at that.
Ooh, Clid has found Marin. He has no flash. Visions of War. Leap catches him midair. Marin steps back. Clid goes low. Shields and disguises himself. Flash gets him to safety as Yagao looks for the kill, but Karin takes the long way around. Doesn't get caught by the sleep. Auto attacks. Paddlestar misses another one, and Karin is alive.
That should have worked out far better for Jingdong because they were on the move, recognizing that they need to back up Zoom. This was just a mistake for TOP because it was Marin's advantage that started it off, but Corn wasn't rotating. It was only Karin. And if you don't have vision of the mid lane, just because the wave's not there, sure, you don't know where Yagao could possibly be. You should be moving there first. TP coming through.
And Mao immediately turning onto Phage. He drops Black Shield onto Chocho, but that's not one, but two teleports. Raz, RD, gifted the kill. Visions of War forces Chocho to go around. Never Move pulls him in, and a double kill on the Kog'Maw.
My God, TOP's bottom lane, visions of what happened when they went up against Suning Gaming. Game 3 up against Suning, it was a double TP towards the bottom lane, and their friends weren't there to help. Sure, Corn doesn't have TP for himself, but you know that you have a TP disadvantage. Why are you even there?
And take a look at Marin's summoner spells. Using his own teleport to go into lane, he's able to push into the turret, but Clid on the top side is able to defend. This is the communication we were just talking about. And TOP, okay, maybe they've got it now. They're looking for Clid. And maybe they've got him. Nope, he's gone. Okay. Top tier 1 is the target as Corn and Karin look to break it down for the trade, but already first brick taken by the Kog'Maw.
Yeah, even with the speed boost of the Karma, it's going to be even difficult to ask for that. In fact, Clid is here with Yagao.
Sleepy Trouble Bubble behind. It manages to tag onto Marin. Yagao is not able to get in as Karin sidesteps to leave Marin to die. He still will follow up to Mao. Another Sleepy Trouble Bubble onto the Karma. Visions of War procs the slow. Mao is looking to chase him down, but the team says no. Hold your horns.
And here's the thing. With no Marin and Karin and Corn likely having to go back, in fact, he's TPing towards the mid lane, this top lane is free for the pickings if you're Jingdong.
That said, it's only Zoom pushing up into that top tier 1. Karin is in the jungle as RD continues to push up mid. You can see TOP trying to answer, but it seems like just a response as they're pushing bottom.
It just comes down to tempo. Right now, it's heavily in favor of Jingdong. Sure, the bottom play went through first on the side of JD, but because TOP were so far late to take advantage of the Marin trades that were happening much earlier, they're just much slower than you would have expected. Marin's been doing so well for the first, I would say, 10 minutes of the game, but because Corn has been so disconnected with the top side of the map and with his own laner, to be fair, they have been losing out quite a lot.
I think in that one play, the thing that exemplifies the team's communication more than anything was Sleepy Trouble Bubble hits Marin, Zoe comes in with the Paddle Star, and then Corn and Karin sidestep out of Marin's way to sacrifice him, but Yagao messes up the flash and doesn't quite kill him.
I think it was just a lose-lose situation,
Yeah,
because Karin did a great thing in trying to block the Q coming in from Yagao, but that's not what you had. You had two things to worry about. It was the invisible Kha'Zix that got you in the end.
It's so difficult. Still, Cloud Dragon taken by Jingdong as they seem to be the ones operating at a higher level here. And though TOP are responding, like you said, the tempo is in Jingdong's hands. This is a team that has found new identity ever since Doinby left them at the beginning of the year. And this new identity seems to be largely revolving around Yagao and Zoom, with RD, the recent addition, being sort of a safety in the back line as that Kog'Maw.
You could say safety, that may be fair. I wonder, just because it looks like they're constantly evolving even this late into the season. Because they've been moving between both Clid and Xiaohan as junglers. They decided on Clid just because he was far more aggressive in the early points of the game and it really fit their style. Sure, it works well with Yagao, but RD I have been liking just because in his team fights, he's able to output a lot of damage for his team. So even though he has the same style, I would say, of Loken, he's been a little bit more effective, which is fun to see.
And certainly something that you need to bring to bear if you want to try to make it into playoffs. Again, Jingdong, they could very well be eliminated from playoff contention if they drop this series against TOP. If they won't be straight eliminated, but it'll make competing that much more difficult. Still, though, they seem to be taking the initiative into their own hands here as they're pushing for the top tier 1. Clid finishes off the Rift Herald, and you need to get the buff. There he goes. And RD and Mao will also be able to finish off that top tier 1. Nobody's defending mid right now.
Yeah, right now this is just a full pushing spree from Jingdong. TOP might look for a fight just because Corn was able to get his Ardent Sensor, so they are in a decent spot to actually amplify damage around Chocho. but he still needs his Infinity Edge. Wonder how much gold he has currently just to see how close he is, because he doesn't even have the pickaxe for himself. He must be sitting on quite a bit. That's where a bit worried for them, because if they can get the Infinity Edge, then it's easier to play around that. But they still have to look towards 3 items before they're really comfortable around playing their team fights up against Jingdong.
Not to mention the difference when you compare. Caitlyn, yes, she needs those 3 items to really survive, but if RD will be at 4 items by the time the Caitlyn gets to 3, that could become even more scary. It's about 22 CS down for Chocho, and the kills primarily piled onto that Kog'Maw for RD. It's a lot of gold.
While that is fair, it comes down to how you play those team fights. Because when Chocho has his items, he can play around the fact that you do have double front lines of Karin and Marin if Marin goes full tank. I know we've seen a lot of damage builds coming out of him, but this composition makes sense for him to go full tank for himself. So if we get 2 frontliners, he walks up. Who does Jingdong have? They have a Kha'Zix. Sure, you have an Alistar, but that's a support tank for yourself. So you don't have many people who can stand up in front of RD. So RD is going to be a lot more vulnerable.
So far, we haven't seen any major team fights. It's just been small skirmishes as these teams are chasing down their items. RD happy to push up into that top lane and try to deny some of that Caitlyn CS. 2 full levels ahead as Chocho will be catching the wave here. Karin and Phage escorted to keep Caitlyn safe.
And the more you push out these lanes, it just hides where Clit is going to be throwing the Rift Herald. Because there's so much vision that's lacking on the side of TOP. They're trying very hard just to gauge where the action is going to be happening. It should be in the mid lane, but they're not sure, I guess, until now.
The wave will crash. Now they've got vision already. You can see Karin and Phage making their way to defend, but the wave is cleared out so quickly. Even Zoom is there without a teleport.
You have no Chocho mid, and you have Marin in the bottom side of the map. This is going down.
It's immediately broken down. Sleepy Trouble Bubble. Black Shield will try to soak some of the damage, but Protobelt does even more as Herald gets another charge onto the tier 2. But now that map has opened up so much more, and while there's no more threat of a Rift Herald, there is the threat of the Alistar and the Kha'Zix pick.
Yeah, so they still have the pick potential on the side of Jingdong, as you mentioned, and they can start to play around, I'd say, top side of the map. Just send Swain bottom lane for the rest, just because it looks like the Dragons haven't been helping them out a little bit. Now it's just literally cloud after cloud.
Another cloud, yeah.
So you can play around the fact that you actually burst down Baron pretty decently with the Kog'Maw and Kha'Zix. So you go towards that top side. Sure, it's a little riskier just because you don't have many tanks. Just has to be Alistar that plays that. That being said, Marin, get out of there.
He will successfully step away.
I'm a little worried for him.
Heals himself up off of some honey fruit. I hear they are fantastic. Mao with the ward over the wall will spot him out as he makes his way to defend. Still, teleport available for both of these side laners as we now see a 1-3-1 for the 2 teams. The double hyper carries, RD and Chocho, Caitlyn and Kog'Maw, going to be hanging out in these mid lanes, trying to absorb as much CS as they can to try to propel them even closer to those late game builds, but already Wit's End is done on RD.
Yep, there we go. You already mentioned it. TOP just needs items underneath them, so all of this pressure, or at least all of the minion waves coming into them, it's all gold. They just need the gold, while Jingdong are pushing in just so they can get more solidified vision. The red buff isn't even necessary. TOP actually shouldn't fight this at all unless if they find a really good opening.
RD takes it. A Sleepy Trouble Bubble narrowly misses Korn. 4 members of TOP hanging out on that top side by the Raptor camp. And still the laning phase continues.
So right now Jingdong's entire pressure should just be push mid, push top. They need 1 member top lane. Sure, Yagao is moving with them. I guess it's just for the blue buff, but I think it's going to slow them down. They need the waves on their side so they can continuously put the pressure towards the Baron that's up now.
Already, though, we can see RD perhaps looking to push a wave in bottom. No priority on the Baron, priority instead on the Cloud Dragon. As RD is even going to be taking the blue buff here. Pings onto the mid-tier 1. Jingdong have to be careful if they overcommit on this bottom half of the map.
So it is worth mentioning the fact that they are still valuing the Cloud Dragon. It now has in-combat movement speed. So that's great. You're moving around the Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw can walk up a little bit more freely in advantageous team fights, so just can get more damage on Karin. So if you can get damage onto Karin, onto Marin, then you're in great position. So it looks like they're just finding these dragons to stack up, and it also makes the Elder Dragon a little bit more impactful.
And now, with that Baron on the map, we can already see Zoe heading towards that top lane. RD with double buff, happy to set himself up down in that mid lane and continue to farm wave after wave. Zoom and Marin going to continue trading on this bottom half of the map. as is expected of Marin. He does have a CS lead, but he hasn't really been able to affect too much of the map outside of that.
Yeah, and I don't think you should be sending another member towards the Swain at this point. In fact, it looks like Kha'Zix is helping out the Swain here. Just because Swain has full soul fragments, all 5 of them. If he finds himself in a fight, he's going to be able to stall it out for a little bit and have the full burst damage that follows through. It's usually pretty difficult to gank a Swain if you don't have the constant damage to follow it up. And with the fact that Marin is building much tankier, has the Black Cleaver, but he's immediately gone towards the next magic resist item.
Adaptive Helm.
Right now, Marin is not going to be able to help out Sejuani if that does turn into a 2v1.
And that said, we're also seeing Karin hang out on that top side of the map right now, looking to protect Chocho, looking to protect Korn, because again, that's where a lot of the late game damage is going to come from. If Chocho goes down by assassination from the Kha'Zix, assassination from the Zoe, that's a lot of the damage missing from TOP. Very dangerous composition to play against the likes of Jingdong here. So they are investing quite heavily to keep that Caitlyn safe. Still though, Jingdong could be hunting for a pick. RD shows himself.
Ooh, and this is the dangers of not being able to... Oh, here we go.
Flash over the wall. They're targeting the Sejuani. She flashes into the wall and continues to kite it forward. Mao backing away. Uses the Unbreakable Will, but RD stands his ground. Flashes away, but Marin pins him to the wall and gets the kill. That said, Chocho still alive as Zoom with the dive. Yagao chasing it down, and Marin retreating off the back. 2 for 1.
I mean, Jingdong, that was a little bit hectic. They even lost RD for all of that. That was still a great start, a great setup for them.
Visions of War, Paddlestar over the wall, but Marin is so tanky. He's going to run away from 3 people here, and Mao will Hex Flash to head him off, just wasting the time for his team. Chocho using that opportunity to go in, pinned finally down, but still, he dies in the end.
And here's the thing. Took so long to take him down that Karin is already back up. So Baron is not an option for Jingdong. They can just head back towards it and look for another setup. But look at the setup for this. No vision on the side of TOP, so they have to invest at least a few more members so they feel safe in moving up. But Clit is behind them to slow them down. But all eyes are on RD here, because at this point in time, he is still way too far forward than he should be, with no protection here other than a little bit of the Alistar. But Alistar is done. He's already expended his full combo to start the fight. RD should take a few steps back, knowing that the full lineup is diving through rather than looking to protect him.
Now we did just see Korn die there. Coming out of this replay, 30 seconds on the death timer with teleport. Already though, you can see Jingdong starting to clear vision around this Baron. Constant threat as Marin will now teleport in to protect his team.
I feel like we need a new stat. It's called death to replay success rate. This game's just
Baron
bursting it out.
Going to be started. Yagao's Banshees is soaked up by Marin. He lands the Sleepy Trouble Bubble, but is not able to get too much damage off the back of it thanks to Adaptive Helm. And now TOP dissuade further fighting.
And this is how you know that Jingdong right now, just because of their squishier composition, it's harder for them to stick towards Baron. They have great pick when it comes to the Baron itself, but just sticking and getting damage upon themselves is hard just because Mao is their only tank, and you saw how much he took from just a little bit of time just tanking Baron itself.
Now we did just see Karin throw out his ultimate, which is a pretty big cooldown, but luckily that binding will prevent any further follow-up from Yagao as Jingdong reset the map and take a breath.
So this is when as we look at how Korn died.
Catches him recalling.
A little unfortunate. You know how he ended up in there. But just moving back to the problems now Jingdong have to face, because they do have a considerable lead, but once again, it's difficult for them to solely play around the Baron game, unless if they do find a beautiful setup as they did in the last fight. So they just kind of have to start recycling that setup that they had there and force TOP to group up together and check Baron. That's their way into this game, because if they try and look for the same Baron runs where they force them to come towards the pit and they're just getting tanked on the Baron itself, they will lose too much AP to even want the fight.
Ooh, Clid gets caught out, leaps over the wall, ace in the hole, but Redemption keeps him topped up. Now Marin, you'll note, is grouped up with his team. He did use his teleport to catch up earlier. That means Zoom, with his teleport, is split pushing bottom. So Jingdong, right now, they're trying to play a 4-1 as Marin is pushing top to defend, but here goes Jingdong starting to set up vision.
This is just a surprisingly comfortable position for TOP to be in. Sure, they have to respect the Baron, but they don't have to put too much time in it. They can actually relax a little bit, push out the mid lane. That's why Chocho should be fine as long as they have all vision on Mao.
Visions of War will slow Phage. Sleepy Trouble Bubble again, flying wide. RD steps up. He's looking for the tier 2. That's the binding and the never move, and the support is dead. Black Shield is gone. Luckily, Yagao unable to catch up to Chocho as the tier 2 is broken. I'm sorry, my breath caught in my throat at that moment as Chocho got caught. But still, they push up now towards the inhibitor. No Phage to protect the AD, and the AD back in the fountain means that the inhibitor line is broken as Jingdong are able to collapse before TOP can defend. But Marin is so close to Mega, but he's forced to sleep on it.
What a good change in pace from Jingdong. They recognized that it was too hard to play around Baron for that long. They decided to just go straight with the mid lane wave and try and dive under tower. It was so fast that TOP didn't expect it. It was Korn in the bottom side of the map that was respecting the split push coming out of Swain, that he couldn't rotate then to help his team in the mid lane. So there was just a pure advantage in the side of Jingdong.
Now take a look at TOP, fresh out of the spawn. They know Jingdong have gone to the Dragon, and immediately they decide to rush the Baron, doing the same thing we saw Rogue Warriors do a moment ago. The trap line is set. Mao threads the needle, so does Zoom as they go in. They found Chocho in the back. Clint is ready with the leap. It's at 3,600. He assassinates one support. Is he going to look for a second? As Zoom goes in, he gets another kill, but Baron picked up by TOP. Will it matter, though, if they all are dead? Korn is going to retreat as Marin buys time. He will die. A double kill for the Kog'Maw, a double kill for the Kha'Zix. Yagao picks up the 5th, but teleport mid as Jingdong win the ace.
That's it. That was a desperation play from TOP. They recognized how far behind they were, and they just needed to get Baron and get out of there. But it was a fast act. Good audible from Jingdong as a whole, taking Dragon, move Alistar straight towards the Baron, and that was just lights out for TOP.
And 27.5 minutes in, Jingdong barely seconds away from spawning will watch their Nexus crumble with sepia-toned screens as Game 1 goes to JD.
Well played on the side of Jingdong. Lanes were working well for them as well. TOP had a bit of an advantage straight towards their top laner. Marin had another good game. It feels like I'm just echoing myself every single time we see a TOP game where it's Marin taking a lead and the team not knowing how to utilize it. Once again, it happened here. And what do you do other than going to the back once again and having a discussion of maybe just, you know what, Korn, rotate earlier.
Yeah. Tragically not able to do so in this Game 1, but still we saw TOP responding intelligently with the right ideas when Jingdong were setting the pace. It just was so little so late, and take a look at that gold grass. Rocky crumbly, but smooth all the way down to the win.
Yep. Great play from Jingdong. Love the fact that they're constantly moving. And even though execution can look choppy at times, Klid is also just constantly moving. Doesn't matter if the first one doesn't work out too well. He's just already back on the map looking for another dive. So that's what I love coming out of Klid. Want to see a little bit more of it now going into Game 2. Jingdong, they need to win this game. I think this is where you come back and say they do need to win this game because of how successful Suning are currently being able to take the victory over Rogue Warriors. So taking a victory versus TOP is a must, unless if they just have some psychotic last week.
Some crazy plan scheduled for them. But like you said, Jingdong, they are currently not in playoffs. They are 1 win behind, well, 2 wins now that Suning won a little bit earlier today. The likes of Suning. And I think you're right. I think if Jingdong want to try to compete, they have to show that they don't just play the game that TOP wants to play. TOP are 2-13 right now. They are the worst in the league by a country mile, and they cannot afford to just sit back and relax and try to fall prey to the trap game that Rogue Warriors fell prey to earlier today.
Yeah, and we didn't see that here. I think Jingdong were a lot more active here, and they were constantly putting TOP on the back foot. I think this time around, TOP going into Game 2 need to find themselves another lane to move around.
Well, we'll have to find out if they can do that. But first, now let's hear from our analyst to break down that Game 1.
Thanks, guys. I'm moving straight into picks and bans for that first match, Clement. We saw Zoe come back. We already seen it played earlier today in the Suning match, but we also got to see Morgana being picked up by 2EOP, which is a curious pick. We've seen it played international, like in the LPL as well as the NLCS and a little bit in the EU LCS, but not in the LPL. And it's the first time we're going to see it played.
Yeah, that's a very interesting pick, and it really did set up the entire strategy for TOP right here. What they're going for is a siege composition. They picked all the strong, taken all the strong champions that each individual lane likes, and they put it into a coherent comp. However, the big thing about this composition is that you do need to continue to have tower pushing tempo throughout the entirety of the game. We can talk a little bit about something I really like about TOP's bans right here, and that's the 4th Jarvan ban you see. If you look at Jingdong's composition, their first 3 picks, they're already very lacking on physical damage, and they also need an initiator to break the siege composition coming out from TOP. So the Jarvan ban was incredibly intelligent, and it did force Jingdong into kind of a weird position. They could have gone for the Zac that actually counters the enemy composition perfectly, but they needed physical damage. So they went into the Kha'Zix and the Zoe, which I felt like was a misstep for their composition because it didn't really work out, and TOP all obviously read what they were going to do, and they actually punished the mid and jungle synergy multiple times during the early parts of the game.
That's interesting, because I'd agree with the Jarvan pickup being denied, taking away that physical damage, but the Zoe, wouldn't you be able to use the Sleepy Trouble Bubble then, try and break the siege that would eventually come up from TOP?
Oh, yes, that's true, but I think I don't really like her because for 2 reasons. First of all, Caitlyn actually counters her pretty hard. You can put the trap on her original position where she Art in, and also she's a very fragile champion, so once you have the IE, you can simply just Art directly onto her to take her out of the fight. She also has nerfed wave clear on this patch, so the Caitlyn into the Zoe versus Caitlyn, I actually like the Caitlyn a lot there. I really like what TOP were trying to do, however, it did come down to the execution.
It certainly did, because we never actually saw TOP get access to the early game turrets. They never were the ones that were proactive, and JD were able to secure the early game advantage, largely due to their bottom lane, where they're simply able to outplay in a 2-on-2 scenario.
Yeah, this is the big turning point in the game for me, because this meant that Caitlyn and Morgana were actually going to lose lane. Now, normally you never see this combination lose lane. They have the range advantage, they have the wave clear advantage, and they also have that chain CC that can lead into kills very unexpectedly. You hit the Dark Binding, you put a Yordle Snap Trap, or the other way around, it's almost instantly a kill. And for that to happen in that bot lane, that was absolutely huge. That broke TOP's entire tempo and game plan for grouping first and sieging down towers. Once that actually happened, you could see that TOP were wandering around. They didn't know what to do anymore.
No, it did not look like TOP knew what to do once that composition fell behind. They thought they'd be able to get the siege, they'll be able to use Caitlyn to access the turrets. It was not going to happen. However, it came down to a fight that went around Baron for JD. They already secured the lead, they already were in the driver's seat, and they secured the win by picking up Baron after a team fight.
Yep, very cool things from Jingdong right here. They did have the vision advantage for a very long time. And we can look at the back here. Yagao actually missing a couple of his skill shots, not able to get it to land, but still, they're very far ahead. And also, Zoom coming in from that direction really kind of seals the deal for them. Marin had a good showing. He's trying to salvage whatever he can. However, he's on the wrong side of the map, and Zoom has already pushed the entire team away.
Didn't matter too much that Yaka was going to miss those paddle stacks. They're already so far ahead, like you said. Zoom got a very good flank, which is crucial for Swain, and it is going to be Zoom that picked up the MVP off the back of Jindong's win. Cleared, sorry, who picked up MVP off the back of that performance coming out from JDG.
Yeah, this is one of his favorite champions. He still has an 80% win rate on the Kha'Zix. However, I do think the gameplay here was a little bit shaky. The early skirmishes did not go into their favor, and that's something that they need to be more aware of. So for Jingdong's composition, I don't think they had a very coherent identity. They did let TOP string them along, but they were the better players at the end of the day.
And they've got to be very careful about that, because yes, this is TOP. Castle's already touched on it. TOP are having a very tough split at the moment. But JD's playoff contention is on the line, because Suning just took down Rogue Warriors. JD do have the head-to-head, but they need to be much stronger against the bottom of the pack teams.
Yeah, and this was not a showing that I would be particularly proud of. It was a messy start of the fight, and actually TOP had a lot of footing in here. So for Jingdong, I need to see something stronger to really justify their position in playoffs.
So TOP did have the strategy going into game number 1, but JDG's pure execution and mechanical plays were enough for them to pick up the victory. Let's see what these two teams change, but first let's go into a quick break. We'll be back in just a bit.